So I picked about 4 books overall, and each one of them kind of meant something different to me. Some of them were just recommendations from friends, and some of them I had read myself. Each one that I picked had a different theme or a different realm where it touched on. So We Want to Do More Than Survive touches on the education aspect of what we learn when we grow up and what we're told and how that shapes us for our adult life. The Hate You Give kind of goes into like your identity, and that's one I just related to on a personal note. The Color of Law kind of goes into like the sociology of why racism exists and why it's so prevalent in 2021 when it's something we thought we had tackled way back then. So each one of them touches on a very important part, but all of them touch on the systematic racism instead of actual situations. Yeah, so I guess one that really resonated with me was The Hate That You Give. That is a movie that people have seen. Hopefully everyone has seen. It was free over the summer when all the social justice movements were going on Hulu. And this one really touches on people weaponizing racism, and what that means basically is like being black is seen as like a weapon on its own. Like you sitting in a car versus a white person sitting in a car means something completely different to a lot of people, and so they touch on that, and they even go so far as to put it onto a child, which like a child is a child, but in the end he's a black child versus a white child, and he picks up the gun and the cops like go to shoot at him, and it's just something like to think about, something to note, because going through life that when you're not African American, you don't really think about those kinds of things, but like everyday things are stressful for a lot of people, like driving or going to the grocery store, things like that. So that really touches on melanin being a weapon, and also going through kind of an identity crisis, because you think of yourself one way, like I think of myself as an educated woman going through like a business program and just like normal day things, but someone else might think something completely different of me, or like think that I'm intimidating or things like that. So it's just learning how to accept those things and move forward and not let them hold you back. Yeah, there's actually, this is actually something within African American culture. We talked about this at BSU not that long ago. We Want to Do More Than Survive touches on the fact that you can't just be good. You can't just meet the qualifications, and this is something that African American parents ingrain in their kids really early on, is good isn't good enough. You have to be great at what you do, which is awesome. It's always awesome to shoot higher, but you also can be just qualified for a job, and it just touches on like why that is the way that it is and how we can change that so that you can just be normal and like live normal life. Like you don't have to be exceptional if you don't choose to be. So okay, so The Color of Law really hits on how systematic racism started and why it's still able to flourish. It goes into the politics and also the economics of systematic racism and how it keeps the 1% at the 1% and then everyone else at the bottom. So it does a really good job of explaining, because sometimes people on day-to-day, when things like the George Floyd happened or Breonna Taylor, those shootings, they don't understand how that could have happened, but The Color of Law does a really good job of explaining how it can happen and it will happen, and then what we have to do to change that systematic process. I guess just I wasn't a big book reader before I came to college. It takes a bit of time and it takes me a minute to read, but this is how I've gained the most understanding about situations. Sometimes we scroll through Instagram and Twitter and we're trying to find a fast answer, but that's never the case. And so reading the books is super easy for me, just to get it, like it gives it into context and it gives examples and it makes it easier to connect the dots in between like things that usually will be hard to explain. So yeah, if you have spare time, definitely pick up one of these books.